All right. Anybody remembers which glad tiding we finished? I thought it was 11th we read last, but right?
No, I guess we finished at 12.
We finished 12th. Yeah. Okay. So we are starting at 13th.
Mhm.
All right. Vijay said we are doing Z2 up. So Vijay goes first. Is that how we are this time? Yeah. Okay. All right, Vijay. Mr. Vijay Hussaini.
Just a minute. Only 13 black things. The 13 glad tidings. The men of God's house of justice have been charged with the affairs of the people. They, in truth, are the trustees of God among his servants, and the day springs of authority in his countries.
Yeah.
Yeah,
O
each,
people of
because
God,
glad tidings are small, let's have each person read each. So go on.
O people of God, that which traineth the world is justice,
That
for
which
it is
in the world is justice, and underline the men of God's house of justice. Oh, what traineth the world is justice.
for it is upheld by two pillars, reward and punishment.
Punishment.
These two pillars are the source of life to the world,
Source of life to the world.
inasmuch as for each day there is a new problem, and for every problem an expedient solution. Such affairs should be referred to the ministers of the House of Justice, that they may act according to the needs and requirements of the time. They that, for the sake of God, arise to serve his cause, are the recipient of divine inspiration from the unseen kingdom. It is incumbent upon all to be obedient unto them. All matters of state should be referred to the House of Justice, but
All
acts of
matter of state. Here's the limitations, all right? All matters of state should be referred to the House of Justice, but acts of worship must be observed according to that which God had revealed in his book. Go on. We'll discuss this once you finish the whole thing.
O people of Baha, sorry, but the act of worship must be observed according to that which God had revealed in his book. O people of Baha, ye are the drawing place of the love of God and the day springs of his loving kindness. Defile not your tongues with the
Defile
cursing,
not your tongues with the cursing and reviling of any soul.
and guard your eyes against that which is not seemly.
Guard
Set
your eyes against that which is not seemly.
forth that which ye possesses. If it be favorably received, your end is attained. If not, to
To
protest
protest is
vain.
vain.
Leave that your soul to himself and turn unto the Lord, the protector, the self-subsisting. Be not the cause of grief,
Be
much
not
less,
cause of grief.
much less of discord and strife. The hope is cherished that ye may obtain true education in the shelter of the tree of his tender mercies, and act in accordance with that which God desireth. Ye are all the leaves of one tree and the drops of one ocean.
This paragraph could be fine too as a second paragraph now. So I should have done this homework before. I didn't. I'm sorry, but I will look into it during next week and find it out. There is one, because there's many mentions of the houses of justice, of the House of Justice, right? The houses of justice, the International House of Justice, the Universal House of Justice. There is, so in one sense, this is about all the houses of justice, local, national, and international. There's one place where Baha'u'llah, and I, again, take it with a grain of salt, I think it is this one, but I have to find out. I have to confirm that. So because he says the men of the House of Justice, there was one instance where Baha'u'llah talks about the Universal House of Justice, and then Abdul Baha's authoritative interpretation was that only men, right? Because in general, when writings say man must do this, the Guardian has said it means man and woman both, because man means human being. But there was one place where it's where Baha'u'llah said men of House of Justice, and Abdul Baha said, no, this was particularly just men. That's how your Universal House of Justice has only men. And he was asked why, and he did not explain. He said, you will know it soon enough. And that soon enough apparently hasn't come yet. It's 181 years after. So I have my own opinions on that, which I won't share. All right. So there's that. Trustees of God among his servants. So if this is the instance, then it's talking about the Universal House of Justice. But in general, when we talk about houses of justices, House of Justice is all the House of Justice. Your local assembly is not given that name yet. And that was again by Abdul Baha, because he said we weren't mature enough yet. So that we needed to get trained to deserve the name, the House of Justice, and then it will be switched. But your local assembly, in essence, actually is the House of Justice. We just don't call it that way yet, right? Because the House will decide when. And so the matter of state. So that is your matter of law. What are the matter of states? We must know what the matter of state is, because everything is not matter of state. State cannot come and tell me how I believe, how I disbelieve, who I believe, what my conscience is, what my freedom of opinion is, what my talks are, how I read, how I not read, how I live in my own household, how I marry, how I raise my kids. That's not state affairs, right? Those are not state affairs. State affairs are what? Administration only, and not administration of everything. Because the states have taken over a lot more than they were actually built for, too. So one must dissect and study what that is, right? That's what the populations are complaining about, by the way, because the governments have expanded themselves so much into every corner, rightly or wrongly. Maybe it started rightly and then it becomes wrongly, because you expand yourself into the areas you shouldn't be expanding yourself. It always backfires in the long run, all right? We talked about the relationship of children and parents in subcontinent. That's a huge problem. And because parents have gotten into areas they shouldn't have. It's not the other way around. In the West, the problem is the other way around. In the West, the children have gotten into the areas they shouldn't have gotten into, and would have left the parent in charge in those areas. So both sides are suffering for two very opposite reasons, right? Because God has made a limitation on all relationships. And if you don't adhere to them, then you have suffering. Make sense? So everything is the same then. My living in my city, living with my law, living with my government, all of that is the same issue. God has ordained certain amount of power to each relationship, certain amount of duties, responsibilities, and rights, right, to each and everything. And if we don't learn what those circles are, and whenever we cross those circles in relationship to each other, that's where suffering starts and ends, right? So, so let's say in the modern state, just because modern state is doing something does not mean that's what it means. Make sense? So we must learn out of the writings what rights God has granted to the state. What rights were granted to the state, the secular state? Anybody knows? What were the areas that they were supposed to be in charge of or had power over? Anybody? 2 or 3, I believe there were total only. The state is responsible for your safety and security, and they have power over it. That's why they decide for war. A state only can decide for war, not an individual person, organization, or whatever, right? So that has been that way for a very long time. And that's why even in the Quranic dispensation, like what the Taliban or this or that people were doing was so wrong, because if you are not your own entity, you cannot decide for it's an established government that can decide for to go to war or not to go to war, right? So safety and security having the police systems, having the army running, that was your state's job, right? So what else? What else is state's job? So that's what granted power to the states, by the way, right? So that's your homework. I don't want to chew up everything on the thing. So that's your homework. It should be easy to Google it and find out what were the states' prerogatives that were given to them. Out of those, all of the states have expanded into all sorts of areas. And that's what now people are bickering and fighting about. One would say we need more organization. The other will say we need less organization. All right. So there is the answer to that in the writings as well. Right. So what is happening is too much power has been centralized, right? Everywhere. Regardless of if they're dictatorships or they're democracies. Even what we very proudly say democracies are very much centralized power, too much power into the governments, right? So that's called centralization. So because all power is centralized and then they give you a little bit out, whatever it is. And that's not allowed in the Baha'i faith, by the way, okay? And the Guardian writes about that in the dispensation. Neither too much individuality nor too much of centralization. There has to be a balance. And where would we learn the balance? For where God has given us our rights. Okay. So when we critique outside world, we must know what is it that Baha'u'llah is offering. We can't just critique something. All philosophers critique very well, by the way, historically speaking. All the good philosophers have very good criticism of society. The problem was they never could come up with the answers. So if Baha'is are not really studying and providing the answers God has given, then you're not offering anything either. You're just offering critique like everybody else is. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the street is critical of something or the other. And a lot of their critiques are actually valid and right. Some not, but a lot of critiques people do of the systems are right. But they don't know how to what to replace it with. So don't be like those. Don't be like Baha'is who have the answers to how to be then, right? So that's why when you're going out and you're studying or doing this, that, or the other together, when problems are brought in, then our side of discussions, more time should be spent on where the solution is. What is the solution? And solution shouldn't be Tom, Dick, and Harry's solution, mine or yours. Solution has to be what is God providing, right? And God is not dictating as a machinery, by the way, that we are robots. No, he's giving everything as a matter of principle, right? And then we do have our own ideas how to grow within that. But you must know the umbrella of that principle. What is the principle, right? All right, so there's that. So the house has only the matter of state. The matter of worship, not so much. You think studying the writings and teaching, where does that fall? Anybody? That's our primary duty, right? So because it's a major factor of our life, the primary main factor of our lives, where does that fall? Shimi, were you saying something? You're mute, so I can't hear you.
Worship.
Worship, yes. Study of the writings and teaching comes under worship. It's not a state affair. All right? It's not a state affair. Okay. How do you do the actual marriage ceremony is a matter of law. Therefore, it's a state affair. That's why the LSAs dictate where and what you do it, right? But how do you live your life with your husband or wife? Not a state affair. Make sense? So you must learn what is the state affair and what is not. Otherwise, you will let others trample on your rights, or you will be trampling on their rights. Make sense? So in the outside world now, there is a freedom to people can go and decide whatever they want. When they hear that on marriage law, we are so stringent, it is very stringent law, by the way, compared to the modern world. They're like, wow, it should be my personal right. Well, no, that portion of it is not your personal right. That portion of it is a law. and therefore the state handles it. For us, state is the houses of justices right now, right? In future, it will be a different level of doings, but we don't know what that would be yet. What else was here? What else we highlighted that we need to talk about? Justice. The world traineth, the world is justice, not mercy, not forgiveness, right? Mercy and forgiveness are cherries on top of our lives. What is that famous quote of Baha'u'llah? If you want mercy, then what should be done? If you want mercy, then you should live for others. Give them everything you can. But if you want justice, then what? Then give them what you want for yourself. Right? The golden rule, do not unto others, is matter of justice, not mercy. We thought, oh, it's such a higher level. Mercy is higher than justice, by the way. Mercy is beyond. But God never asks us for beyond. He does not make it as a duty for beyond. Beyond is okay, so you want to get A grades in school, college, and A grade starts at what, 1991 or 92, depending on where you're going, right? So let's say I required you to get an A. That's at 90. Now, yeah, you are capable of getting 95, 97, 98. When you do that, wow, right? I mean, we're so impressed and so much happier, but that's not the requirement. That's what you do above and beyond, and bring your own self and everybody else who deals with you happiness. And of course, better life for yourself when you're working that hard too, by the way. But that's not a requirement. That's above and beyond. The requirement was 90, so you can have an A. That's your justice, right? So do not unto others, or give others what you want for yourself, is not matter of mercy, it's matter of justice and fairness. And justice is bottom line, foundational to living, right? Foundational to living. If you want to have roof over your head, you need to have one room, you have to have 3 to 4 walls to put a roof up, right? That's foundational. Basic, without that, you can't do anything. Make sense? That's foundational. Foundational is without what you cannot move forward, you cannot do anything. You cannot achieve the goal you want to achieve. So living together here on this world is not possible without justice. Building, Baha'is often talk a lot about unity. Unity is their favorite word. But unity is foundationally, prerequisitely dependent on what?
Justice.
Justice. Baha'u'llah is very clear about that. Without justice, you cannot achieve unity, right? Why not? Let's say we are Baha'i communities, we have our problems with each other. We are human beings. We will never have a time when we won't have problems with each other, okay? Even in the same family, that's not possible because we are different capacities and different personalities. God has made us that way. You talk one way, I talk another way. You think one way, I think another way. The moment that happens, there will be inevitably sometimes closer relationships because we think alike and talk alike. And there will be tensions because we don't think alike and talk alike. That's where it all stems from, right? I deal with these issues this way, you deal with issues that way. Now, that doesn't mean that both of us are right, by the way. In most situations, one is right or both are wrong. If two people are dealing with opposite ways of two things, two opposite things cannot be right. One is right or both are wrong. Make sense? Logically speaking. So because of that interactions of humanity, it's inevitable that we will have tensions. Inevitable. There'll be different type of tensions. 2,000 years ago, people killed each other, took a knife and just cut the head off. And now we don't do that. We are much more civilized than that. But now we cut heads off and hearts out with our words, right? Now that is the new fighting ground, so to speak. I mean, there are places where the people still beat each other physically, but in most cases, we don't. In most cases, now we are beating each other with the words. And so there are guidance in the writings to how to use words, right? How to use words. So there will be always tension. It wouldn't be the one it was 2,000 years ago, as we can see in reality. And it wouldn't be this way in another 2,000 years after. They will have some new ways of creating and dealing with tension, because our capacity, the way God has built the world, is going to be the same. Meaning our capacities would be different, our personalities are going to be different. And we come closer and closer and be more perfect if we follow God's word. Then most people kind of behave in a certain way that you are creating a foundation where there's more harmony. So let's say between two people, regardless who they are, maybe they're neighbors, maybe they are siblings, maybe they are whatever, family members or not, community members, whatever. Things have gone really wrong, whatever the matter is. Let's say you wrongfully stole my house from me. All right. And we say, well, don't worry about it. God's going to make a palace for you in the next life. Just let it be. So we are united. So we don't fight. Do you think that's unity? Is unity not just fighting on the surface? You think the one whose house is stolen would ever be at peace in this world if you don't deal with the issue? No, right? So if the institutions are not, if you brought it to the institutions, in the secular world, you take it to the court, you take it to whatever, you take it to police. In the Baha'i world, if the matter is whichever, you take it to the local house of justice or national house of justice or wherever. If that thing is not dealt with justly, guess what? You would have that tension forever in your heart. The one who stole from you, you think you can become sincerely friends with them? Most of us are not capable. Maybe saints can and prophets can, but most of us can't. That's why God has created justice. But once justice is done, then what? Even the one who was wrong, then you suffered a lot during that time, but you move on. Yes, a wrong was done, but it was now corrected, right? You feel good about it. You actually feel good about that justice was done in the end, even though you were in so much tension while that thing was going on. That tense period didn't get away, right? That story didn't go away that somebody tried to steal your house from you. And yet you're able to move forward and even feel good about it because justice was done. If it's not done, there'll be no friendship between these two people. Right? There'll be no friendship, and there'll be slowly and gradually the tension grow. And guess what? Partition happens, not friendship and unity. Unity happens from the heart. We are united from the heart, or we are not. And we are not united in conformity. When you say to somebody, oh yeah, they tried to steal your house, but don't worry about it, don't fight. So we are not coming out as fighting, deal with it, suck it up. God will provide you something else so we can show a united face. That's just a show. It's not real unity. What you're trying to say is that it should be seen as that, which most of the Asian cultures are that way, by the way. A lot of goodness happens, so people will see that it is goodness, not that it actually is good. Things should be actually good and united, not that they're seen that way, right? Because then it's artificial. Then what you're saying is you're conforming to an idea how a community should look like. We were not asked to conform to ideas. We are united in diversity. Onto what? What are we united on? We are not united that Shimi talks the same way as Ghazala does or Farzana does, or Farzana thinks the same way as Ghazala does or Shimi does, or Rehana does. We're not united at that. What are we united at? How are we united?
The words of God, the writings gives us.
The word of God, the writings. All right? Our pathway is the same, our end goal is the same. Our end goal is the same. How we are getting to it will be 1,000,001 ways to get to it. There's your diversity of thought, right? So all of us sit down and say, okay, how do we do this? You will all will have an idea to how to do it. Some ideas are better than others, always will be. All right. So therefore, there is guidance to how to deal with that diversity, right? So what does the consultation say about ideas? Once your idea is put out on the table, then what? This is a paradigm shift, by the way. It cuts down a lots of fights in the world if you follow that. Just a little thing. a little, we call it linchpin, right? So it keeps the arch together. You take it down, everything falls. Once your idea is put on the table, it's not yours. Got that? That's a major part of consultation. Read the compilation of consultation. Okay. Once the idea is put on the table for consultation, it's not yours. This came out of you, yes, it's not yours. Can you imagine the outcome if we actually are mature enough to understand what that means? The rest of the 8 people take it or discard it, no problem. The rest of the 8 people take it because you're talking about in a consultation in an assembly, 9 people, right? One of them gave the idea. The other 8 discarded it or took it up. Presented it as assembly's ideas, took it out. You have no business anymore. Yeah, of course, I'll be happy if my idea was good. Of course, there's a pleasure in there. And when your idea is bad, there's a certain amount of embarrassment inside, but that's kept here. Here, dealt with here, not there. Make sense? I'm not going about saying, that was my idea. The other 8 didn't even know crap about anything. No, wrong behavior. Right? Or they discarded it. Oh, I gave them such and such. They didn't want to listen. They're all stupid. Wrong. Bad. If we can be mature enough to hold the way the consultation is supposed to be held, can you see that most of the world's problems will go away? Private and communal. It's mostly these sticking points that we kind of bicker, we gossip, we backbite, we go out and either we are telling everybody that, oh, they didn't think of that, I thought of that, I'm really genius. Or they were stupid, I gave them a better idea, they didn't want to take it. Both those ends are forbidden to us. Both those things curb at the place where it says your idea is on the table, it's not yours anymore. It's not my property anymore, right? Now, you will expand on that and say, okay, then, what about copyrights? You write a book, those are your ideas. Should you have copyrights? Yes. And we won't go into details of all of these sides of how legalities work. Make sense? But you must, whenever you come up with an idea, try to think about all the side effects of that, good and bad, and where does it fit and where it doesn't fit. Mostly when we try to superimpose one thing into all this or eliminate its potency is where the problem occurs. Makes sense? So now you can, you understand when the guardian before he passed said, try to delve deep into the writings and see where the answers are. The 12 candles days are past. We are still teaching from the 12 candles point of views, right? The Baha'is have 7 candles or 12 candles. You know, the guardian already said a couple of years before he passed, he says, those days are past. The world is caught on to those things. Those things are commonplace now. Even if some societies have not achieved it, they do want it. They know it. They uphold it. So it's done. So when you come to somebody and say, hey, men and women should be equal, they go like, what the hell are you talking about? Of course, yes. Rather than teaching them something glorious about your faith, you actually end up making them indignant to say, who do you think I am? You think I don't know that? You think I live in cave age? You think I'm from 200 years ago? What are you trying to say to me? Maybe they won't say all of these things back to you, but that's how they feel. And if they feel insulted, they're not going to listen about your faith. Make sense? You have to meet people at their intelligent. And that's why we have to get to know them first, right? I was at somebody's table the other day and they put a fruit on the table and say, do you know how to use this? And I just smiled because I think if I was not a Baha'i, I would have very indignant face on me. And it's like, you see, that's how it is. It's like, I'm like, what the hell? I was like, you think I mean, maybe I'm brown, but come on, you know, I mean, I live in this society too. I know what this fruit is. And I know that they didn't mean anything. They didn't mean to insult me. It was in sort of unwitting way of, right? You're black, I'm brown, or you're white, I'm black, you're green, I'm blue. And so people kind of assume certain things, right? And it's unwitting a lot of times. It's not a purposeful insult to somebody. So I was able to smile because Baha'u'llah warns us about these things. I'm like, whatever. I was like, yeah, I know how to eat kiwi, right? So, but but that's how it is when you teach somebody and you come to somebody and say, well, men and women should be equal. And I'm like, duh. Of course they are equal, and of course they should be equal, right? So the Guardian talked about that. It's like the time of 12 candles have passed. That was in 50s, 1950s, he said that. More than 70 years ago. And in lots of times, we still kind of focus our teachings from those angles, right? You've seen that. And people smile at you and go away and go like, you idiots. That's what they think, really. Like, you idiots, really? You're going to try to tell me something better? Right? But how about you sit down and talk about what globalization means? You think they won't listen? Like, yeah, we are talking about globalization and this and that. Well, there is wrong in it and there is right in it. You think they won't want to hear what you're wrong and what your right is? And learn the wisdom. Don't say it's a very great idea. The moment you said that, those who are wondering about it would not hear you anymore either. Make sense? Can you see that? Because then they think that you are with those idiots that they consider idiots. So even the best of the ideas, learn how to present them. That's why we are called over and over again to have eloquent speech, right? What is eloquent speech? You know your proofs and your arguments, and you're able to present it in a way that people can absorb them. If that's not the case, then you have wasted your time on the discussion on the table, right? It's sometimes first time somebody told me in an Islamic society that people have lots of wrong ideas about the faith, and you know that. So they're like, well, they say, don't you say Baha'u'llah is God? And no, they told me, they said, well, they say that you say Baha'u'llah is God. And I'm like, I got shaken. I was like, what do you say to that? What would you say to that? All of you. Somebody says, you think Baha'u'llah is God. What would you say? Rehana? Sorry?
He is manifestation of God.
But they don't know what the word manifestation means. So if you want to answer the question right, somebody says, you say Baha'u'llah is God. What's your immediate answer should be?
Representative of God. Messenger of God. Messenger.
You can say that. He's a messenger of God. But your immediate answer, unequivocal, without thinking, should be no, God forbid. You're talking about a Muslim is talking to you, right? Now, if a Christian is talking to you, you can have 2-3 other sentences before you come to the actual answer. That's fine. They're trained for that kind of stuff. That's what it means when Abdullah says, teach them from their backgrounds. You must know where the person stands with this. You know what the answer was from this person that totally like flattened me? They said, well, we say yes and no. I'm like, holy crap, why would you say yes? Why would you say yes? First of all, it's not true according to our writings. The moment you said yes, you lost them. You lost them already. They did not wait for your no. You're done. No more teaching. You've done the damage. Not only that you've done the damage, you inoculated them to anybody else who would have been successful too, because now they don't want to talk about it at all. Now they went home and they said, oh my God, the Baha'is are such idiots. They think their messenger is God himself. They're not any different than blah, 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 blah. Whoever they said that to would not be hearing any Baha'i either, most probably. Right? So get deeper into the writings and see where the world's problems are. That's what the guardian asked for, and learn how to provide the answers out of them, right? So we should have a long couple of hours discussion on some of these issues to see how to tackle them. What else? So then it says every day has a new problem and an expedient solution. So those are when a new problem arises that is not in the writings. That's where the houses of justices make the new substitute subsidiary laws, right? And we already spoke about that. Subsidiary laws doesn't mean that any law can be contradicting the writings, by the way. Even if that issue didn't exist in the writings, but as a principle, there is how to deal with something, then that subsidiary law comes under the connection of that umbrella. Nowhere their laws can be contradictory to the writings, even if the writings didn't speak about a certain issue. Make sense? Because writings are our master and guidance, all of us, everyone. No one is above them, not even Abdul Baha the guardian, right? It is incumbent upon all to be obedient unto them. Obedient unto them for what? The matter of state. Can a local spiritual assembly come and dictate me how I should study and how I should teach and how I should do my prayers? No. They can, but that's not what I'm asked to be obedient to. Right? I'm asked to be obedient to when they implement the law that actually is just law. All matters of state should be referred to them, all right? Acts of worship are left to the book only. And then the next paragraph, of course, is a character, how our character should be. So all of these things, yeah, we can take it, use dialogue to resolve issues, Baha'u'llah says. That's what consultation is, right? Use dialogue to resolve issues. From small to big, all matters. All matters. Even if you have an issue with your 3-year-old, sit down and talk about it. Yeah. Isha was 3 years old when she told her mom that. She was like, her mom apparently yelled at something and she said, Mama, you shouldn't be yelling at little children at all. My sister says, I said, what should I be doing? She goes, you should talk to them. You should sit them down and talk to them. And my sister says, I said, who told you that? She goes, that's how Lala does it. she used to call me Lala because she couldn't say Ghazala or Khala. I'm her Khala. So yeah. So discuss it with them. All right. So resolve your differences through dialogue. That's the tool that has been given to eliminate war. But war wouldn't be eliminated until we perfect the tool. Right? There will be unity in our communities, which is required, but unity cannot come until we perfect the tool. Honest, straightforward, frank discussions is a prerequisite too of the same consultation. Because you cannot succeed in a solution with a dialogue unless everything is put on the table. Because if you don't allow people to speak what is bothering them, then it doesn't get resolved. It's just simple as that. You can put everything on the table that is bothering you. What is your requisite though? What is asked of you, the one who's putting it out? There is a requisite for me too. If I have a problem and I'm putting it out, there is a prerequisite for me too. What is that? The listener's prerequisite is you should allow me frank, unfettered. Frank and unfettered. Unfettered means you're not, just because I said that and then you punish me for saying that, that's fettered, by the way. Because now indirectly you're making me not to say something because I'm afraid of that punishment. Unfettered means unfettered. But the one who's saying that, I have a prerequisite too. What is that? Anybody?
To be detached. To be
But
open.
right now
to-
I'm very attached to my issue. So there is a prerequisite to it. For I'm allowed to put it on the table, frank and unfettered, but the one who's putting on the table has a prerequisite. Courtesy. Courtesy, all right? Courtesy is a prerequisite for us. Courtesy does not mean that you conform with things or you just don't say it because, you know, courtesy is whatever you're saying, it should be said in a adult human way, right? He has said that here, no cursing, no swearing. Don't curse and swear at people. Don't curse and swear at people. There's your sign for that, right? Be polite. Politely put out what you need to talk about, right? Because the moment the cursing and swearing starts happening, by the way, nobody's listening to you anyway. The heart shuts down and the ear shuts down. So it's not in your favor to be doing that. It's not just for the protection of the other side who's going to listen. It's for your own benefit as well. And so devise your ways and perfect this tool. It will really help you personally, and only out of that, the unity in society will come. Yeah. Okay. Next. Sorry, we spent so much time on it, but it needed to. I think we need to spend time on these things. The 14th glad tiding, who's next? Philemon.
The 14th Glad-Tidings. It is not necessary to undertake special journeys to visit the resting place of the dead. If people of substance and affluence offer the cost of such journeys to the house of justice, it will be pleasing and acceptable in the presence of God. Happy are they that observe his precepts.
So this to me is a twofold issue. One is elsewhere, for example, pilgrimage is only mandatory if your health and wealth allows that once in your lifetime, right? So in the Shia sense, there were there is a the Sunnis don't do that, but the Shia sense and some other religions, they have some mandatory visiting of dead people too, which is uplifted out of this as well. So it could be like dual injunction on those, right? All right, the 15th glad tidings.
The 15th Glad-Tidings. Although a republican form of government profited all the peoples of the world, yet the majesty of kingship is one of the signs of God. We do not wish that the countries of the world should remain deprived thereof. If the sagacious combine the two forms into one, great will be the reward in the presence of God.
We talked about this in detail in one of our sessions, right?
Yes.
Quite a bit detailed that Baha'u'llah wants that back. Yes, he abrogated the power into kingship, not the kingship. Same as he abrogated the power and authority into religious leadership, not the religious leadership itself. The scholarship has not been abrogated. The ulamas, the mullahs have not been abrogated. The word for learned in Baha'i writings is the same as you say mullah and alim, same word. That's not abrogated. Their personal individual authority onto others is abrogated. So read the things rightly and dissect them rightly, or we'll get lost, right? We talk about democracy on the world everywhere, but the way democracy works right now, or what is considered democracy in the world, is not Baha'i thing at all. Read the dispensation of Baha'u'llah, you'll learn that. And that's where the problems are, by the way. So if democracy was the best thing that God has created, why are we so broken everywhere? The world is in the darkest turmoil when it comes to ruling and ruled and governments. Why do you think that is? The moment a system is perfectly closer to what God wants, you have harmony and peace. It's inevitable result of that. And if there is no harmony and no peace and everything's breaking down everywhere within our communities and outside, then you must reflect on what is it that we are doing wrong. Right? So there is only one part of democracy that is existent in the Baha'i administration. Which one is that? Should be pretty obvious to all of us. Farzana, you were saying
One what? Sorry, election.
voting.
Sorry, your question.
Voting, right? Elections, not so much. The way the elections happen, we are forbidden, actually. Elections, the way the world is doing elections, are forbidden to do that way. So there's your problem. Party system is forbidden in the faith, right? So no parties. Voting, every 21-year-old has a vote, can cast a vote to whoever they want. That part of democracy is part of Baha'i faith as well. Elections, not so much. Parties, not so much. And there is one other main issue that is, again, that linchpin. It seems very small matter, but it's a linchpin. You take that out, everything collapses. There is one other element of that the faith presents that does not exist outside and creates great havoc in governance. What is that? It is, you have only the right to elect somebody, right? You only have the right, full right, to elect somebody as an individual, so much so that your siblings, your parents, your family should not influence that. They shouldn't even know who you voted for, by the way. So inside or out, or vote is secret to my own heart. I decide what I wanted to vote for, and I vote for them, wherever you're voting. So whatever principle God is granting you, implement it everywhere, by the way. It's not compartmentalized only in the Baha'i communities. So if you're going out and voting for your president, your prime minister, your councillor, your city, whatever council, use the same methods. See how much harmony you can compose in your own families and households and communities. Voting is your private matter only, no one else's. Not even discussion is allowed about that in the Baha'i faith. Once you're done voting, here's the linchpin issue. Once you are done voting, you have no control on the one you voted for. They do not rule according to your dictations. Not supposed to. They're supposed to be careful about your happiness, unhappiness, what you think, what you don't think. They should be cognizant of that. They should have what? The fingers on the pulse of mankind, Baha'u'llah says, these institutions. But their decisions are not made as per your wishful thinking. Their decisions are made according to what? According to what God wants. Okay, according to what God wants. Now it's a little bit easier for Baha'is because all Baha'is should know what God wants. But regardless, so they are then responsible. Once they're elected, they are responsible to their conscience and their knowledge of the writings and their knowledge of what God wants, not what you want every day. And that's what we are doing in societies, by the way, right? Your government decides something, everybody in their living rooms gets abrupted. I want my president to make this decision. You have 6 million people, all 6 million opinions. Your president can't make 6 million decisions. You do elect them, you say, well, you're very proud of democracy, but you do not respect it at all. When I say you, I mean all of us human beings. We don't. In any of the countries, I've not seen people respecting democracy they're so proud of. Democracy means when majority voted and decided something, everybody comes forward, accepts it, and follows it. That's what the end goal of democracy is. The moment a decision is made, half the population is out in the street fighting it. How would you ever get anything done? How do you respect that democracy? 51 people voted for one president and 49 hated that, and you don't respect it the next day, then what respect do you have for democracy? What? None. You only have respect for our own wishes. And our own wishes cannot be implemented onto millions of people every day. We sitting in our living rooms, yes, some of us are intelligent, some more than others. We cannot decide on geopolitical issues every day, what your government should be doing. Why bicker about it? Your job is to elect them. You don't like what they're doing? Next year, don't elect them. That's it. Right? That's it. But we don't do that. We don't do that anywhere. So in the Baha'i thing, you have the right to elect, but you don't have to to dictate your institutions every day after that. What is your right? You still have rights on them, by the way. What is that right? If you think they're doing something wrong, write to them. If you think something is not right, it's your job and duty to tell them courteously. Write to them. Give them your ideas, what you think should be happening. And then what? Because you wrote to them, then what? Then the faith says what? Your job is done. Your job is done. Now you don't go about bicker about saying, I wrote to them, I told them, they're not listening. Yadi, yadi, yadi. That yadi, yadi, yadi breaks down the community and society. Okay? My job is to just do my job. My job is to not do their job. If my idea was perfect, if my idea was according to the writings and they didn't adhere to that, that's between them and God. I finished my work. Don't try to finish it. Don't try to do everybody's work. That's what we're trying to do. Human beings are trying to do everybody's work. And that's hubris, by the way. And that hubrisness is the one that is condemned by God. I'm so proud of my own intelligence. I think I know better than the whole millions of people. Every one of us thinks that way. Right? That's where the attachment to your own ideas is. If I didn't think about that myself, I wouldn't be so attached to my own ideas. So yes, my idea was perfect. It was according to the writings. I wrote to them. Why did I walk away from it now? Because that same writing is telling me to. Believe in part of the book then, the Quran condemns, and Baha'u'llah uses that phrase because that's what we do. We pick and choose out of the writings what we will follow and what we won't. And that's why even when you're falling halfway through, things are breaking down because you're not falling the full way through. Make sense? It's a full remedy. If you take half the medicine, it doesn't work. Those of you who are doctors, you know that very well. You've prescribed 3 different medicines that overcome each other and the disease, right? You go to a major serious disease, you have 3, 4, 5 different type of meds the doctors give you. Why? Because one is causing this side effect and the other will cover that. Then this is causing that side effect and this other covers that. So if you don't take the whole of it, there is some major problem starts occurring. You either take it whole or you don't, right? So the God's word works the same way. It gives us rights, it gives us responsibilities, and it describes that as a wholesome thing. If you're able to do the wholesome thing, there is peace, right? I saw some wrong things in the community. I wrote to the LSA. It's like, maybe you guys need to talk about this. Okay, done. Will they? Won't they? My job is done. Right? My job is done. And if it was not a communal issue, it was one of your friends' issue that you know, then there is writings and guidance on that too. What is that? If you think you have that kind of friendship that they'll listen to you, put it on the table. Put it on the table. That's it. There's nothing beyond that is allowed to you in this dispensation. Put it on the table. If they take it, good. If they don't, pray for them, walk away. Don't hate them. Don't go bicker about in the community. Don't do anything else. Pray for them. Right? All right. Next paragraph.
In former religions, such ordinances as holy war, destruction of books, the ban on association and companionship with other peoples, or on reading certain books had been laid down and affirmed according to the exigencies of the time. However, in this mighty revelation, in this momentous announcement, the manifold bestowals and favors of God have overshadowed all men, and from the horizon of the will of the ever-abiding Lord, his infallible decree had prescribed that which we have set forth above.
Okay, so destruction of books, not allowed. Don't just, you're free to read And there is one restriction though. What is that? In spite of this paragraph, there is a restriction in the Baha'i faith. One.
Holy war.
No, we are not allowed holy war. Baha'u'llah here is saying that all things are okay. Read everything, you can associate with everything, but there is a restriction in the faith.
Association with covenant breakers.
Yes, all right. So that was elaborated and implemented by Abdul Baha, and then the Guardian, and then the House, of course, right? So we are discouraged to read their writings because it's called a contagious disease, spiritual one, and you're not immune from it. So therefore, stay away from it, or to associate with them, right? Once it's not, and you can't decide who is and who isn't. It's not for me and you to decide. It's not even for the LSAs or the NSAs to decide that. That is left only at the highest level. Only the House can decide. And only after the House has decided and published it. Make sense? You cannot just nitty gritty decide who you think it is or not. Yeah. Baha'u'llah has injunction to say anybody to eschew the companionship with the ungodly, and the Guardian has described that what ungodly means. Ungodly does not mean other religious people or believing in other religions or believing in this or that. What does ungodly mean? Ungodly means the same thing as the worldly means. Baha'u'llah says stay away from the world, and we talk about it several times. Baha'u'llah himself explains what the world means. What is that? Anything that makes you stay away from God, or makes you colder toward God. Anybody's company that makes you go cold towards God, eschew it, go away from it. Don't keep it for your own safety, right? So there is that, what you call it, help available to you. But when it comes to covenant breaking, that is a very specific thing. And it wasn't even the House's job, it was Guardian's job, but because we don't have the Guardian, then the House decides. But unless House has published somebody's name to say this person is that, you're not allowed to call somebody that or to consider them as that. Make sense? So there you are. Okay. And these are the tests of the covenant of the authoritative expounders, by the way. If you didn't have Abdul Baha and the Guardian explain some of these things, we would have thought very differently. Make sense? Because if you just read the paragraph without Abdul Baha and the Guardian, then it doesn't say what we actually know that it's saying. Right? Okay. We yield.
We yield praise unto God, hallowed and glorified be He for whatsoever He had graciously revealed in this glorious and incomparable day. Indeed, if everyone on earth were endowed with a myriad tongues and were to continually praise God and magnify His name to the end that knoweth no end, their thanksgiving would not prove adequate for even one of the gracious favors we have mentioned in this chapter. And to this beareth witness every man of wisdom and discernment, of understanding and knowledge. We earnestly beseech God, exalted by His glory, to aid the rulers and sovereigns who are exponents of power and the day springs of glory, to enforce His laws and ordinances. He is in truth the omnipotent, the all-powerful, He who is wont to answer the call of need.
So half of the world is abrupting between right now what some Muslims think Islam means and what the world is dealing with it. If he had come to Baha'u'llah, none of these things would be happening. Because all of those things that are being manipulated right now have no reason to be even manipulated anymore, because God himself has abrogated those laws 180 years ago. Make sense? And all of the governmental issues we are suffering wouldn't be here if you actually followed how the government should run. And that's where your obligation of teaching comes from, by the way, right? It's not lots of times it's the older people thought, oh, if you believe this, you'll go to heaven, otherwise you burn in hell. And that's what caused us this whole salvation issue. Salvation issue is not just when you go to heaven or hell after death. Salvation issue is how do you live properly in this life? Yes, the faith of God is for eternally for my soul, eternal life. But first and foremost here, I'm here. How do I live here? If I don't live properly here, I don't live there. Make sense? We are always, and previously we were always occupied about who would go to heaven or hell after they die. But that's not what yes, that is half the part of it. But the other half starts here first. So if we were able to understand the writings properly, study them, understand them ourselves, and then taught the world as a matter of fact, because these are the answers to our actual daily problems, right? We wouldn't have the problem and they wouldn't have the problem. It's as simple as that. So study well, understand well, and take pride in it, that you are on the forefronts of where God had given you the answers. Share it. Share it as openly as possible. Don't be hindered about it. You're willing to go to seminars, you're willing to go to TV programs, you're willing to go to anybody else who's speaking out to say, hey, let's resolve this issue, this, that, or the other way. And you have the main resolutions of the issues. Why wouldn't I present that? Why wouldn't I present it wherever I sit? Right? With the prerequisite of courtesy. And my job is to what? Put it on the table. My job is not to threaten them with heaven or hell or none of that. Or to have any grudge in my heart because they didn't listen. All right? Consider it $1 million lottery in your hand and you're trying to distribute the money into people. If they don't take it, it doesn't anger you, you have more for yourself. If they take it, there's a great pleasure for you and for them. They don't take it, there's nothing to it. You still have more money in your pocket. Yeah? Teach the faith. Teach the faith. The world is suffering. Salvation is not about heaven and hell in next life. Salvation is here. Heaven and hell here. The world is in hell right now. Our own lives are in hell because we are not living and sharing. Study and share. There is nothing more pleasurable than that, by the way, once you get into it. Nothing more pleasurable as well. All the fun is contained there. The Guardian speaks about it. It's like because you don't have the taste of it, you don't know what it is. Right? In Kitab-e-Gan, Baha'u'llah says they refuse all moments of leisure to themselves for not coming to God. It is moment of leisures, right? All right. Any other questions, comments? Think about these ones seriously and write a paragraph or a page on them, by the way. Not just for me, but for your own self. When you sit down with people and discuss it, you should know what you're talking about. Okay, so Baha'u'llah has elsewhere again in Kitab-e-Aqdas and here has promoted constitutional monarchy. What does that mean? It still is hereditary monarchy. Constitutional because you still would be having parliaments and stuff who do actual powerful work of power. The kingship is in a sense of executive, so to speak, that is consistent and gives you a sense of consistency. And consistency in your own living and in your policies, by the way. And if you learn how America is failing and not working well, you would understand that issue really well. Because every 4 years, a new administration comes, the whole policy changes. Because they have so much power within that presidency that they can decide whatever they want. So 4 years ago, I said, I'll be best friend to India. 4 years after, the next guy comes and he goes, nah, I think I'm going to be best friend to Sri Lanka and not to you guys. Guess what? You get stranded in the middle of it. That doesn't happen in England, by the way, right? There is a certain level of policy that is consistent. So you can depend on that. You can make friends with that. If you're not consistent, nobody will stay your friends forever. Make sense? So that's what we are lacking in the kind of democracy we have implemented right now in the world. It's failing. It is failing actually, terribly, right? So seriously think about it. You know, your country doesn't run any different than mine here. Think about its problems and then see what the writings are talking about, where the strength is, why the writings are talking about it. If you know your issues, you should know where the strength is in the answer, right? And note it down, write it down, take a few minutes, write it down. It will clear your own head for discussions when you're sitting on the table discussing with anybody. Otherwise, half the time we end up saying something stupid and we lost the person because now they don't want to listen to you the next time. But because of that, don't be afraid either. Sometimes that pushback happens, that it should happen. It wakes you up, right? It wakes you up and you want to be prepared better next time. But what I'm saying is, since we're spending so much time, I've spent years studying together. Why come to that end anyway? Do the proper way of studies, write it down for yourself, solve the dialogue in your own head, ask the question somebody else would be asking. See where the problems are, write down the problems. These are the problems of my system, okay? This is what the writings say we should be doing. Then where are the strengths? How is it curbing these issues? Have that thought clear in your head. Next time when somebody talks to you, it comes really easy. I'm saying that out of experience. It's not theory. It really comes easy. If you resolve issues, think about them in your head. When you resolve issues in your head, when you're talking about it, even if it was first time talking to you, it's so much clearer and easier because you had already made the connections. Make sense? Often we don't do this exercise. We read and then somebody asks me something and I'm put into that thing and something wrong comes out of my mouth. And then I'm embarrassed. They don't want to hear it. And I don't want to make a second try because that embarrassment is hard to deal with. Right? So when you're studying these things, note them down. Whatever works for you. For me, it works really well if I note it down, then it's really solid. Right? That's how I studied the Igan. When I first started studying Igan, there was so much out of it that was elusive, that was like, you understood it, but you closed the book and it went away. And for me, the idea is that unless you can reproduce that thought and that argument and that idea, then you didn't really quite get it yet. So then it was my third study of Igan when I finally was so tired of this, my own lack of my brains to power to how it was happening. I wrote down the whole book. I mean, not like sentence by sentence, but I have the notebook. I read a paragraph. I'll close the book at each paragraph and I'll write, which I asked you. It's like, okay, at each paragraph, let's discuss what it is. So I'll write down my discussion. I was like, this is what this paragraph is talking about. I have every paragraph summarized that way on the paper. And I never forgot the book after that. I never forgot any of his concepts after that, right? So that works for me. For you, it might be some other way. Whatever your way is, find it and do it. All right. The other best thing I found out was discussion with each other. So every now and then there was a chapter of existence of God in some answer question was my challenge when I first read it. I mean, I understood it when I was reading it. You closed it and you couldn't produce it. If you cannot produce it, you cannot teach. Teaching is my primary duty. You must learn how to produce it, right? So then I gathered my husband and my friend and I said, sit down, I need to discuss this, right? So we had a couple of hours discussing that thing and then it got clarified. So either you write it, clarifies, either you talk it out loud with other people that push back on your idea. It's a good thing, by the way, right? You think it's this, have somebody that is close enough and good enough and deep enough that can push back at you. To say, nah, this doesn't make sense because of this and that. And that sorts things out. That's the best way of learning, by the way. That's why the Guardian said we should have these classes and these studies. Right? So you sit through lectures, you can get an overall picture, you study yourself, you study together. He says there is no studying of yourself of the scripture with anything else. If you don't study yourself, you'll never really quite get it. And then once everybody is studying, then hold the classes together, hold the discussions together. Have the like-minded people around you and discuss things. These are Guardian's guidance. And it really works beautifully, right? Because our own minds alone have the blind spots. All of us do. Those of you who drive know what blind spot is, right? Blind spot is when a car is here, you're driving, and the other car is here. They're not equal space at you. They're not behind either. When they come to a certain place, that's called blind spot. You can't see them. Okay? In your side view mirrors, if a car is at a certain place with your car, second one, you can't see it. That's where the analogy of blind spot comes from, right? We all have them. So when you sit together with people who actually do deepen and study and discuss things out loud with them, they push back on those blind spots where you got something wrong. That's where the accidents happen, by the way, right? Blind spots are the ones if you're not, that's why they say when you're changing lanes or something, even though you're watching in your side view mirror, you should look this way. Why? And that way with your head. So if somebody's in this space here, you can see them. That's how human learning to gather and discussions are as well, by the way. When you sit down with others and study together, it takes care of your blind spots. Okay? All right. So you're going to write down a paragraph or a page on this special, this 15th Glad Tidings. Tell me what the issues of your administrative government are. Where is it that is failing? And how the writings strengthen those areas if we follow them. Farzana, yes?
No, nothing. Meera said write it down, so I'm just trying to put it down.
Because you did this, I'm like, are you saying something?
So when Meera said write it down, I said, okay, I'll put it down.
Okay, good, good. Got it? Any questions for me?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, please give reference related to this 12 candles by Shoghi Effendi.
I would say it's a pilgrim note, and I'll find it and send it to you, but he was talking to pilgrims when he said that. He said the time of, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, forgive me, but he said the time of teaching through just 7 or 12 candles is past. The world is caught on to this. And you can see the actual glimpses of, if you study the Promised Days Come, World Order of Baha'u'llah, and the Dispensation of Baha'u'llah. These are some of the very potent guardians' works. You will see what he was, whatever he was telling the pilgrims, he was writing them in his books as well, in one way or the other, right? So the whole dispensation came about because pilgrims were meeting him, and when they on table, they told him what their idea was, what Abdul Baha was, he got really upset. He got really upset because the Baha'is of his time thought Abdul Baha himself was a prophet, by the way. Lots of Baha'is thought that Abdul Baha was Christ, God forbid, and Baha'u'llah was God, the son and the, because coming from Christian background believers a lot, right? So they actually held that view in the community, and this was towards the last couple of years of the Guardian's life, and he was with pilgrims, some very high level intellectual scholarly Baha'is of the Western world, on his dinner table, and when they told him what Baha'is believe out in the street, he got visibly upset. And they had a long discussion with, I have the whole thing, somebody noted it down, what the questions were, what Guardian said. And you see the same thing much more eloquently coming out in the Dispensation of Baha'u'llah, which the Guardian wrote right after and published, right? So, so when you read the Guardian's work, you'll see all of this. So the Guardian did ask us, it was last couple of years of his life, delve deep into writings, learn the answers, the world needs them, right? The basic stuff is already accomplished. So then the 12 candles, that's Abdul Baha talks about them, 7 candles, 12 candles, right? So yeah. Which is, earth is but one country, mankind is citizen, science and religion works hand in hand, men and women are equal, so forth and so on. All of those ideas are permeated on the globe. Everybody believes them. Even if they don't implement them, they believe them. right? They believe that it should happen. So those things are accomplished. All right. So now that we have science and religion should work, but how we understand that is, you must delve deeper into it and answer the world's question, because the world has gone a bit haywired. The world think if whatever scientist comes with whatever theory should be above the religion. That's not what religion is talking about. And lots of Baha'is feel the same way, unfortunately. That's not what the writings are talking about. All right. So we should delve deeper into it. So Abdul Baha says what? When we say science and religion, what we mean is true religion and true science. And what does that mean? Okay. So yes, those candles work, but some of those candles work at the surface, and they are kind of creating new problems for the outside world. So now you should get the writings again up on those issues, even delve deeper into it and provide the actual answers. Make sense? Men and women are equal does not mean that men should ever be able to give birth, or that women should be able to provide the seed. The seed belongs to man, and the cultivation belongs to women. These will not be, so that we are not equal at that level. So what does equality mean then? Make sense? Because the world is thinking of equal meaning everything, everybody should do exactly the same thing means equality. That's not equality. That's equal outcomes. Equal outcomes are impossible because we are made different and we are of different capacities. Equal outcome means everybody should have $100 in the end. Make sense? Everybody cannot have $100 in the end. You can force that, and forcing that has caused communism and failure into 100 million deaths. Human capacity naturally works differently. You are more capable than I am. You will make $200 and I'll make 100. Farzana is even more capable than both of us. She'll make $1,000 and we'll make 200. It's inevitable. All right. So delve into these issues. Find out what they mean. What does equality mean? All men are created equal in the sight of God. What does that mean? That does not mean $100 per month, because the writings are clear about that too. So that's why it's really important to see the wholesome thing. If you don't read the wholesome thing, you're always falling short somewhere. And wherever we fall short, that issue pushes back and breaks down. Okay? All right. Anything else? Okay, guys. Mwah.
It is same, whatever we discussed. It is same as a 7 candle of unity.
Yes, Abdul Baha talked about many ways. There are 7 candles. There are some people call 9 candles. There are 12 candles. 12 is about the most I heard of. I don't know if there are more, because, I mean, he was only abbreviating when he was traveling here what the main lump sum of faith is. At that time, in 1912, when Abdul Baha was traveling in the West, none of these issues were recognized yet. So, of course, if you're talking somewhere you have been given 15 minutes to talk about the faith, you're going to abbreviate it to some very core level. Now, if the Baha'is then take it that that's what it is, then that's wrong, because it's so much more than that. Make sense? But because we liked his abbreviation, it was easier. We kept on doing that for decades. And just that. But those ideas have caught on. The world believes them.
Now a century.
Now is just how to implement them is the issue, right? The world does believe men and women are equal, but now they're wrong at what equality means. So now your job is to dig down to try to explain and have the discussions about what equality means. Make sense? I should not be embarrassed that I have the talent to be able to raise children. That's not a lesser thing, right? But the world is started considering it a lesser thing. Therefore, they don't want to do that, and they want to do things that men were doing. So we need to learn what is the actual value in life and how to implement it, right? All right. Okay, sounds good. See you next week.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.